While that's rebooting, how about we go ahead and start with a word of prayer? Father, thank you. Thank you for just being who you are. Lord, we come before you now in eager expectancy for a word from on high. I am but flesh. Father, we ask that your Spirit will come and have his way here and now. Touch every heart under the sound of my voice. And as for me, Lord, I pray that utterance may be given me, that I might open my mouth boldly and proclaim the mysteries of the gospel. Do for us that which it is impossible for us to do for ourselves. We rely on you. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I wanted to start with a quote here. I would like you guys to be able to see it, but oh, hello. Didn't I tell you? You know, I've never been one who's like to do things from obligation, right? Like I don't like feeling like I have to do something. I'd rather do it of my own volition. You know, if you make me feel like I have to do something, I'm more likely to rebel. You know, so that wasn't the case, however, for today. You know, we are on the anniversary, 20th anniversary of 9/11. And I had prepared this sermon a few weeks ago when I thought I was going to preach. However, at the same time, I don't believe in coincidences either. You know, so I believe that this is the message for today. But not to undermine the fact of the solemn times we're living in, I did want to start off with this quote. It says, I saw the remnant. Did I just increase that on y'all too? It says, I saw the remnant were not prepared for what is coming upon the earth. Stupidity like lethargy seem to hang upon the minds of most of those who profess to believe that we are having the last message. My accompanying angel cried out with awful solemnity, get ready, get ready, get ready, for the fierce anger of the Lord is soon to come. His wrath is to be poured out unmixed with mercy, and ye are not ready. Rend your hearts and not your garments. A great work must be done for who? For who? The remnant. Many of them are dwelling upon little trials, said the angel. Legions of angels are around you and are trying to press in their awful darkness, that ye may be ensnared and taken. Ye suffer your minds to be diverted too readily from the work of preparation and the all-important truths of these last days. And ye dwell upon little trials, and go into minute particulars of little difficulties to explain them to the satisfaction of this one or that. This conversation has been protracted for hours between the parties concerned, and not only has their time been wasted, but servants of God are held to listen to them, when the hearts of both parties, of how many parties? Of both parties are unsubdued by grace. Now here's the part. If pride and selfishness were laid aside, how long? 5 minutes would remove most difficulties. Angels have been grieved and God displeased by the hours which have been spent in justifying who? I saw that God will not bow down and listen to long justifications, and he does not want servants to do so. And thus, precious that should be spent in showing transgressors the error of their ways and pulling souls out of the fire. The requirement in this passage, which comes from early writings 119, paragraph 1, is for, well, two things. For us to rend our hearts and not our garments. You see, when we rend our garments, who can see that? Everyone can see that. But when we rend our hearts, who's able to see that? God alone. I am impressed with the necessity for us to turn our eyes from externals and to focus in on the hearts, in the work of putting aside pride and putting aside selfishness. This is not an easy task. This is not a task that we actually in ourselves are capable of doing. We must be born again. This is not a sermon to, bring in before you anything new. This is not a sermon to bring before you anything exciting and something you never heard of or thought of before. I'm actually here just to give you something simple. The gospel. I think we spend so much time focusing on this event and that event and what's going on in the world, but we miss what's going on in our hearts. I was talking with a friend just this past week, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing because throughout life I like to distill moments and grab the lessons out of them. So he said, how you know that the church is worldly? He said, it's not because there's people in there wearing jewelry, or it's not because of, what they're eating or what they're listening to. That's not how you know the world is worldly. The church is worldly. It's because the same spirit of division that's manifested in the world is manifested in the church. Because when you disagree with me, I'm not able to show the love of Christ. And that's what the world does. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We are coming upon a time where we will need to love our enemies. And if we can't love our brethren, how then? How in the world will we be able to love our enemies? So the gospel is what we need. But the good news is only as good as the bad news is bad. The bad news is we are broken and bound. But it wasn't always like this. To really understand what has happened, we have to go back to the beginning. And this passage, this next quotation is coming from Patriarchs and Prophets. And she brings out some points that I want us to think on. The first point is the law of love being the foundation of God's government. It reminds me of Jesus when he says, think not that I come to destroy the law. It's like, no, that's not what I come to do. She continues, he says, the happiness of all what kind of beings? If you're an intelligent being, I just want you to raise your hand. So the happiness of all of us is dependent on what? Their perfect accord with the great principles of righteousness. It says, God desires from all his creatures the service of what? Love. Service that springs from an appreciation of his character. Now catch this next part. He takes no pleasure in what kind of obedience? No pleasure. Everything is about the heart with God. He says, God loves what kind of a giver? Cheerful giver. That means you're given from the heart, not just from your hand. Right? He loves a cheerful giver. He said he takes no pleasure in forced obedience, and to all he grants freedom of will that they may render him voluntary service. There's no force with God. No force whatsoever. That's part of Satan's kingdom. That's why you see the mark of the beast. He says, get the seal or I'm going to kill you. He has the ultimatum. You either receive the mark, or death. This is before sin entered, right? So long as all created beings acknowledge the allegiance of love. And I highlighted these words because, what does it mean to acknowledge? I got the definition here. It says to accept or admit the existence or truth of. So if you acknowledge it, if you acknowledge love, you acknowledge one, that love exists and the truth of it, and then you submit allegiance to it, right? Allegiance is loyalty or commitment of a subordinate to a superior. Meaning that if we say we're going to pledge allegiance to love, then love is the superior and we are the subordinate, right? The point I want to bring out into this is it is a very much intellectual thing as well as an emotional thing. God wants to bring the whole being into group with this, okay? It says, as long as they acknowledge the allegiance of love, there was perfect harmony throughout the universe of God. It was the joy of the heavenly host to fulfill the purpose of their creator. It was their joy. They loved doing it. Going out to serve him wasn't like twisting his arm to do it. They enjoyed doing it. They wanted to do it. Is that how we feel? Or do we say, well, I know I should do it, so okay, let me go ahead and, Don't get me wrong. If that's where you are, start there. But understand that if that's where you are, there is still a higher level that he wants you to come up to where it's a joy. I delight to do thy will. They delighted in reflecting his glory and showing forth his praise. And while love to God was supreme, love for one another was confiding and what kind? Unselfish. There was no note of discord to mar the celestial harmonies. So love reigned, and man was made in the same way. Happened, right? Disaffection and deception. It says, now the perfect harmony of heaven was broken. Lucifer's disposition to do what? Serve himself. So now, while everyone's mode, right, their MO is to serve one another and to serve their creator, Lucifer comes in and he says, no, I think I want to serve me. And it said it aroused feelings of apprehension when observed by those. They were like, well, what is this? Like, why would you want to serve yourself? That's so weird. Like, aren't you happy serving each other? I mean, because we're overjoyed with this. It says, it was met with feelings of apprehension when observed by those who considered the glory of God should be supreme. And it didn't just stop with Lucifer. Now he quickly took that attitude to serve self and he brought it down to man. It says, man was originally endowed with noble powers and a well-balanced mind. He was perfect in his being and in harmony with God. His thoughts were pure. His aims were holy. So what happened? But through disobedience, his powers were perverted, and what? Selfishness took the place of love. It says his nature became so weakened that through transgression that it was impossible for him in his own strength to resist the power of evil. This is our condition as passed down from our first parents. We, in our perfection, our mode, our operating system, if you would, was love. Love for God and love for our fellow beings. That was our operating system. But when we were deceived to thinking something about God that wasn't true, catch that because that's important. The deception came when Lucifer convinced Eve that God was holding out on her, that God is selfish. He's only looking out for himself. And in order for you to get what he's trying to keep from you, you have to take matters into your own hands. It was a deception about the character of God that led man to seek to serve himself. So we were deceived, and selfishness took the place of love. So what is the divine diagnosis? Romans 3:23, very familiar with it. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Job chapter 14, verse 4, it says, who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? It's not a rhetorical question. It gives you the answer. Not one. It is impossible for us. Jeremiah 17:9 tells us why it's impossible. Because the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And again, it asks the question, who can know it? See, a lot of us think we know ourselves. Peter thought he knew himself too. He's like, though all these forsake you, I'll never. And he was sure. Do you think he was sincere when he said it? He was sure. And he says, well, the divine diagnosis came to Peter. Before the cock crows 3 times, you're going to deny me 3 times. Ephesians 2:1 tells us that we're dead in trespasses and sin. Isaiah 1:5-6, it says, the whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. 2 Timothy 2:6, it says, who are taken captive by him at his will. This is speaking of Lucifer. Whenever he wants, he's just, yep. This was our condition because once we rendered our service to him, we became captive to him. Not only did we break, were we broken, but we became bound. So what is sin? Our favorite verse, 1 John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. One day I'll share with you guys, my testimony and kind of like my walk to this place. But I had this thing where I walked away from God. I tell you the truth, it is a miracle that I'm here before you. And I don't mean I walked away from God as a child. I mean I walked away from God after attending a medical missionary training school, after becoming a Bible worker and preaching and teaching evangelistic series. I walked away from God. And when someone would ask me, and my wife, she says, I always give Jackie jacket, right? As a Caribbean way of saying that, you give props to where props are due. You tell the truth. Whoever it is, you give it to them, right? So when someone would ask me, what happened, and I said, well, frankly, I love sin more. I didn't try to sugarcoat it. I didn't try to blame it on this person or that person. The fact of the reality is I loved sin more than I love Jesus. I didn't want to do the stuff he wanted me to do. I wanted to watch whatever I wanted to watch. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And why should I go and preach and teach to ungrateful? Come on. But God had something better in store for me. So after, like the prodigal son, I'm sitting in the mud, eating with the pigs. It's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. Literally, what happened was I was driving, and I'm going to condense this. I was on the road. It was a Sabbath, right? Because I totally walked away. I'm working on a Sabbath and driving trucks. And one day I stop and I'm getting fuel, and randomly this guy pulls up in this truck. And he says, well, we have this conversation, and then he leaves, but then he comes back. I'm like, okay, this guy is getting super weird. And then he says, before he left the second time, he says, well, the reason I stopped to talk to you is because I felt like I was supposed to. He said, there's something that you love, and that's what you should be doing. He says, you love your family, but there's something else that you love, and that's what you should be doing. And it's true. There's a letter that my wife wrote me and she had stuck it in my Bible one day when I was going out to the road. And I can't remember the conversation we were having, but I just remember telling her, this is a good book. While I'm out loving my sin, it's still there. This is a good book. And she writes me this letter, and her prayer for me that I will once again find my love in this book. I thank God every day for my wife. But through all of that, I started to read and I started to understand that we must start to hate sin, right? Like we have to hate sin, and typically by default, we hate that which we don't understand. That's the reason for bigotry and racism and all these silly things that go on within humanity is because we don't understand. But it's not so with sin. We don't understand sin, but yet we're drawn to it. So I said, okay, maybe then the way to hate sin is to have a better understanding of what it is. Now, you cannot explain sin. Sin is broad and vast. You can't explain it. But you can have a bit of an understanding of its nature, the deceitfulness of sin. So it says, whosoever committed sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. That word also caught my attention, because it's almost like you're doing something else, you're sinning, but in your sinning you transgress the law. Oftentimes we overlay those two as if transgressing the law is the only way to sin. But I ask the question, what is sin? 1 John 5:17 tells us all unrighteousness is sin, and there is a sin not unto death. But that first part, all unrighteousness is sin. So then that means the opposite of sin would be righteousness. What is righteousness? Right doing, the law, right? Because if you keep the law, then you're doing the right thing, right? But righteousness is right doing. That's absolutely true. Continue, Romans chapter 14, verse 23, and it says, he that doubteth is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith. Whatsoever is not of faith is sin. So wait a minute. So if I doubt and I eat, right? Say I'm eating the right thing. If I doubt when I eat the right thing, it's still sin. Because whatsoever is not of faith is sin. Sin is broad, brothers and sisters. It's not just not telling a lie. James 4:17 says, therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. That's broad, right? Like say, okay, my wife is a wonderful woman, and I dealt with issues of unwillingness, right? If you knew my wife and you knew me, you would be like, I don't understand how they're still together, right? I'm not even joking. My wife is I brag about my wife all the time. So I am, though, however, with all her goodness and love, unwilling to do things that she would like me to do. I don't want to do it. And I don't like feeling like I'm forced to do it, right? Because then I'm going to rebel, right? So we would go through these cycles where she would come to the point where she's like, well, I don't understand you. And I'm like, well, I'm very logical, so I don't understand what you don't understand. I'm not like it's clear, A, B, and C. And I would argue my way of not, so I didn't have to do whatever it is she wanted me to do, right? And then I would go into these depressions because I'm feeling like, well, why don't I want to do it? Like I say I love my wife, right? Why don't I want to do it? Why don't I want to do it? I couldn't understand it. Is there anything wrong with it? Is there anything wrong with if she asked me, hey, you mind rubbing my back? No, I was getting ready to go to sleep. I don't want to do that. I want to. But then I'm like, man, why don't I want to? You guys ever feel like that with God? Why don't I want to? him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, that's sin. Is it good? It's not bad. The issue is, it's beyond our reach. And this is the part of the gospel that we understand, right? Like, we understand it, but I don't think we understand how deep it goes. At least I didn't. Let me not speak for you guys. I'll speak for myself. I didn't understand how deep it goes. So, again, Job says, who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Why don't you want to do it? It's because you are unclean. Selfishness reigns in your heart. That is your default. I want to do what I want to do. And if anything that's going to cause me to have to put in any amount of effort that's not going to benefit me, I don't want to do it. So who could bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Jeremiah 13:3, it says, can the Ethiopian change his skin? Or the leopard his spots? Okay, well then may you also do good that are accustomed to doing evil. Again, who can know it? But we are all as unclean things, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags. And we typically will, accredit this to the Pharisees, right? And their self-righteousness. They say, I did my tithe and I did all this, and those are the ones whose righteousness are as filthy rags. But we trust in Jesus, right? Well, the thing is, we have no righteousness. Literally everything that we do is stained with our selfish heart. Everything. Whether we go to church on the right day, whether we tithe properly, whether we eat the right things or watch the right things, whatever we do, it's stained by our filthy hearts. Nothing that we have is good enough. Proverbs 21:4, I came across this and I was like, what does that even mean? I get the first part. A high look and a proud heart, yes, right? We know that's bad. Then it says, the plowing of the wicked is sin. What? What do you mean okay, maybe that word plowing is something in the Hebrew. Let me look that up. Cultivate. What do you mean the cultivating of the wicked is sin? Cultivating the earth is a good thing, yes? Right? That's a good thing. But if the wicked do it, it's sin. Okay. So you have the righteous and you have the wicked. All right, all the righteous, raise your hand. That's it. We don't have any righteousness of our own. That is the point. So even the good things that we do is worthless. The reason is because we cannot change our motives, right? Paul puts it like this. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. I'm just making noise. Though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. Aren't those good things? Though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Worthless. We tout strongly faith without works is dead, right? Because some of our other brothers and sisters believe that you can just do whatever you want. You say, hey, I got faith in Jesus and do whatever you want. Rightly so. Faith without works is dead. But I believe that faith and works is not enough. We spent a lot of time on faith and works, and that's good. But there is a crucial third piece that is necessary. It says, but we must have a knowledge of who? ourselves, a knowledge that will result in contrition, okay, before we can find pardon and peace. The Pharisees felt no conviction of sin. The Holy Spirit could not work with him. His soul was encased in self-righteous armor, which the arrows of God, barbed and true aimed by angel hands, failed to penetrate. It is only he who knows himself to be a sinner that Christ can save. He came to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. But they that are whole need not a physician. We must know our real condition. Brothers and sisters, we can't know our real condition except we get the divine diagnosis. It says, or we shall not feel our need of Christ's help. We must understand our danger, or we shall not flee to the refuge. We must feel the pain of our wounds, or we not desire healing. Watch this. It says, the Lord says, because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods and have need of nothing. Who is this message for? Laodicea. Who's Laodicea? This is us, right? So this is a message for us. Don't get distracted that she started off talking about the Pharisees. We're not Pharisees, God forbid. But this is for Laodicea. He that hath an ear, let him hear. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. I counsel thee, buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Now watch this next part. The gold tried in the fire is faith that works by what? Love. Yes, we must have faith that works. That's a good start. But we must have that gold, that faith that works by love, brothers and sisters. Only, what does the word only mean? Only, it means just that. Only this can bring us into harmony with God. We may be active, we may do much work, but without love, and we use the word love so loosely, right? Just love, I love this chair, I love this food, I love this hairstyle, I love these clothes, I love this new suit. But she's not broad about her definition of love. She says, without love, such love as dwelt in the heart of Christ. To me, like, oh, wretched man that I am, no matter how dressed up I get, that is a standard way too high for me. Such love that dwelt in the heart of Christ. We can never, what's that word never mean? Never. Not ever be numbered with the family of heaven. We must have a knowledge of ourselves, a knowledge that will result in contrition. So, to be a little bit more specific, right? Turn with me, if you would, to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And we're only going to dwell on just a couple of verses here, right in the heart of it. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. We're going to begin in verse 4. And we're just going to take inventory, right? I'm not asking anyone to speak out loud. I might expose, the reality of my heart. but you guys can keep yours to yourself, right? But we're just going to take inventory. We're going to look at the love that dwells in God's heart. So it starts in verse 4, and it says, charity suffers long and is kind. You know, I tell people all the time, give me Exodus 20 over 1 Corinthians 13 any day. I mean, at least I could pretend with Exodus 20, right? It says, thou shalt not bear false witness. Okay, I'll just keep quiet. You know, I didn't lie. All right, I didn't lie. You know, I didn't kill anybody. You know, I mean, I stole back in the day, but, you know, I don't steal anymore. I mean, I might really want something, but, you know, that's... At least with Exodus 20, I can pretend, right? 1 Corinthians 13, it says, charity suffers long. I mean, what's long? You know, who's the measure of that? Like, what does it mean to suffer long? I mean, I suffer for a time, right? Like for a time, and then you're getting on my last nerve. You know, it's the last one. You're there. Like I've suffered long, and now you're getting on my last nerve. What am I supposed to do? And is kind. Well, hold on. Love suffers long. Okay, I suffered long and is kind. You guys got children? When I got married, I got married and I had a ready-made family, right? And my daughter was already 8. And I'm my father's child. I grew up in a house where you don't disrespect adults. You just don't do it. Like, if you did it, you didn't do it again. So I have this thing like just baked in there, like disrespect is a no-no. There is no need to suffer long or be kind or any of that. Like, you just need to stop right now. And if you don't stop, I'm going to make you stop. Love suffers long and is kind. I'm like, no, okay, put that to the side for a minute. I got to handle this. The more and more that we see Jesus, and the more that we see ourselves, we will see in him one who is altogether lovely, and in us, one who is altogether ugly. Let's keep going a little bit further. It says, charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. I mean, I'm pretty awesome. Have you met me? like, it's kind of hard to keep that in wraps sometime, you know? But you see Jesus, and he's like, yeah, I'm pretty awesome too. You know, I literally am the king of heaven. Like, you know, the king of everything that you walk on, everything that you made, I did that. How do you compare? You want to get proud? Let me show you something. Philippians tells us to let this mind be in us, which was also in Christ Jesus. And I'm talking about the king of the universe, right? That man who all the angels, you know, angels, the ones who came to this earth and one of them could wipe out an entire army, they bowed down to him. So he was made man. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, he was made a man, and not just a man, right? Because it's one thing to be made a man. Like, you can be the man, right? Like, he could have came down like, let me show you guys how this is done. And I'm the king of this world. You guys are all going to bow down to me. And if you don't want to do it, I can make you do it. If this was if the great controversy was a battle of power, then like it would be done already. Power is not what is in question. He said, let me show you what love is. Not only did he make himself a man, but he took upon himself the form of a servant and was made in the likeness of man, and being found and fashioned as a man, as if that wasn't low enough, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, to be crucified by the very hands that he created. That makes no sense. That is why the cross of Christ is foolishness to them that perish. It makes no logical sense that if you have that much power, why would you do that? Because love. That's one thing that he taught me. The first thing he had to teach me, because I'm a very logical person. And he says, love is the end of logic. Love is the end of logic. However, when love is the goal, everything else makes sense. Just a little bit further. It says, doth not behave itself unseemingly, or unbecoming. What's another word? Rudely? Is that what I heard? Rudely. Does not behave itself rudely? I mean, if you catch me on a good day. But does not behave itself rudely. And then the next one, seeketh not her own. Right? I'm not looking for any glory for myself. Love is other-centered. You know, when God created everything, he said it was good. And somebody might look at that and say, oh, he patting himself on the back? What is that? You know, it's good. Look, I did a good job, you know. But that word good in the Hebrew is tov, and it actually means beneficial. He wasn't patting himself on the back. He said, yeah, for the people who's going to inhabit this, for the animals, all the created beings that will have this, it's going to be good for them. It's going to be beneficial for them. They're going to really enjoy this. He didn't do anything for himself. God is good. He does nothing for himself. Oh, I need to move forward. Okay. The Lord desires me, spirit of prophecy, the Lord desires me to call the attention of his people to the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians. Read this chapter how often? Read this chapter how often? Read this chapter how often? And from it obtain comfort and strength. Comfort because this is the God that we serve. This is the loving God that we serve. And strength because this is what he wants you to become. He wants you to be partakers of that divine nature. Yes, it is a high standard, but take heart that he has made a way for you to look like him. It says, learn from it the value that God places on sanctified, heaven-born love, and let the lesson that it teaches come home to your hearts. This is the lesson. Learn that Christ-like love is of heavenly what? Christ-like love is of heavenly birth, and that without it, all other qualifications are worthless. No man can of himself understand his errors. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. This is hard. This next one, it keeps me humble. The lips may express a poverty of soul that the heart does not acknowledge. I could be up here like, oh, I'm not worthy. And my heart's like, but I'm here, guys. While speaking to God of poverty of spirit, the heart may be swelling with the conceit of its own superior what? I mean, that sentence alone can tell you a little bit something about the nature of sin. Like it's just unreasonable. That's why that verse where she says, if pride and selfishness was put aside, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes is all it takes. Well, the reason is because pride is unreasonable. And God made us intelligent beings. He says, come now, let us reason together. Pride is unreasonable. Dig my feet in the ground, I'm right. superior humility and exalted righteousness. In one way only can a true knowledge of self be obtained, and how? You must behold Christ. It is a ignorance of him that makes men so uplifted in their own righteousness. When we contemplate his purity and excellence, we shall see our own weakness and poverty and defects as they really are, not as we think they are. We will see the reality of our existence. We shall see ourselves lost and hopeless, clad in garments of self-righteousness like every other sinner. We shall see that if we are ever saved, it will not be through our own goodness, but through God's infinite grace. Amen. That's the only way, brothers and sisters. It's beyond our reach. Completely beyond our reach. So what is the gospel? Well, I believe that the gospel is the good news about God, right? That God is good. He's not what his enemy has made him out to be. And because he's so good, he sent Jesus to bridge that gap. Now, how did Jesus bridge that gap? Watch this. It says, but even as a sinner, man was in a different position from that of Satan, right? When Satan rebelled, he was beyond repair, right? He couldn't be brought back. But we are in a different position, right? Lucifer in heaven had sinned in the light of God's glory. And all good Adventists here, right? Glory is synonymous to character, right? He sinned in the light of God's glory. To him, as to no other created being, was given a revelation of God's love. Understanding the character of God, knowing his goodness, Satan chose to follow his own selfish, independent will. This choice was final because pride and sin is unreasonable. Okay? It's unreasonable. Watch this, though. It says, there was no more that God could do to save him, but man was deceived. His mind was darkened by Satan's sophistries. That's why when God came to create the world, the first thing that he said was, let there be, to give a light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. It says, for him there was hope, where? In a knowledge of God's love. I say God is good all the time. And in his hope for us in a knowledge of the goodness of God. See, we still have these misconstrued ideas about God's character. The Pharisees had a misconstrued idea of God's character. They paid their tithes. They went to church on the Sabbath. They strained and made sure they didn't eat anything unclean. They crucified God and hurried home to keep the Sabbath. When Jesus came and told them what God was like, they said, you have a devil. By beholding his character, men might be drawn back. Christ came to save fallen man. And Satan, with fierce wrath, met him on the field of conflict. For the enemy knew that when divine strength was added to human weakness, man was armed with power and what? Intelligence. It has something to do with the way we think. Power and intelligence, and could break away from the captivity in which he had been bound. Satan sought to intercept every ray of what? Light from the throne of God. He sought to cast a shadow across the earth that men might lose the true views of God's character, and that the knowledge of God might become extinct in the earth. He had caused truth of vital importance to be so mingled with error that it had lost its significance. The law of Jehovah was burdened with needless exactions and traditions, and God was represented as severe, exacting, revengeful, and arbitrary. He was pictured as one who could take pleasure in the suffering of his creatures. Some definitions, right? Because I look at these things, I'm like, okay, yeah, he was called these things, but what does that mean? Arbitrary, right? Arbitrary, you're based on, it's just based on random, get your feet off my floor, and you better obey because I got the power to do something about it. Why do you want me to get your feet off? Don't, you asking me questions? This is arbitrary. It doesn't matter. It's based on my personal whim. That's what arbitrary is. There's no reason behind what I'm telling you. Just do it. Severe, strict, demanding, right? That demanding that rules and behaviors are obeyed and observed, or harsh or cruel. Exacting, making great demands of one's skill, attention, and other resources, right? Because, come on, man. Like, how can you expect me to be perfect? Revengeful, eager for revenge. So those are what those words mean. The very attributes to the character of Satan, the evil one, was represented to the character of God. Jesus came to teach men of the Father, to correctly represent him before the fallen children of earth. Angels could not fully portray the character of God, but Christ, who was a living impersonation of God, could not fail to accomplish this work. The only way in which he could set and keep men right. Now, it's very interesting, right? What does it mean to have men set right? We use these big, they call them $5 words. We use these big words, and it's not difficult to explain them to children, but I think a good way to explain it is God created man. Man broke. Okay, so God took man and he set him right. That's justification. Now, how does he keep him right? Sanctification. How does he bring us to a place where we not only are right, but we stay right? That staying right is the work of sanctification. And in fact, the funny thing is, we use the word sanctification, and literally what it means is it's set apart for holy use. Right? When you sanctify something, you set it apart for holy use. But God doesn't force us. God doesn't force us, so how does he keep us right? How does he get us to want to stay right? Well, it says the only way in which he could set and keep men right was to make himself visible and familiar to their eyes. Just to let you see his goodness. That's why we must behold Christ. That men might have salvation, he came directly to man and became a partaker of his nature. Okay, we're wrapping up. It says, those who will behold this glory will be drawn to love Jesus and to love the Father whom he represents. Christ exalted the character of God, attributing to him the praise and giving to him the credit of the whole purpose of his own mission on earth. What was the purpose? To set men right through a revelation of God. And Christ was arrayed before men the paternal graces and the matchless perfection of the Father. In his prayer just before his crucifixion, he declared, I have manifested thy name. I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. When the object of his mission was attained, the revelation of God to the world, the Son of God announced that his work was accomplished, and the character of the Father was made manifest. You ever wonder why the angels are so interested in Calvary? Greatest revelation of the character of God. And they are under attack too in this great controversy. Although their minds have been made up since Calvary. They said, yo, we get it. But we haven't yet. Behold, he stands at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. I didn't realize, like first coming into the gospel, I always thought, the gospel was, just that, Jesus died to save me. It's just like, yeah, he took my place, which is true. He most assuredly did. But he had another reason. That other reason was to reveal the Father. To let us know that Jesus, yeah, we love Jesus, but the Father, like we're not too sure about him. He did some wild things back in that Old Testament, and he's like, no, we're just the same. Just the same. And I want you to get to know me. I want you to understand why I did some of those things. He says, learn of me. He says, no man hath seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. He hath made him known. He says, he that loveth not, knoweth not God. Why? Because God is love. So if we're falling short of that, that means that there is something about God that we're not sure of. And we have to continue to, and I call it a climb because, Peter's ladder or even Matthew 5, right? The Beatitudes, that's a progression, right? You're poor in spirit, you're mourn, you're meek, you hunger and thirst after righteousness, then you're merciful. Ooh, that merciful one is tough. John 8:55, yet ye have not known him, but I know him. And if I should say I know him not, I should be a liar like unto you. That's Jesus. He's like, look, I know him. You don't know him, but I know him. If I said I didn't know him, I'd be a liar like you guys. He said, but I know him and keep his sayings. See that? See how a knowledge of God is so part of keeping, is doing what he wants you to do. It's because you know him. It says, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not what? Grievous, right? It's not a burden. Galatians 3, it tells us that the law was added because of transgression. I love the law. I love the law of God. In fact, I love it more than I've ever loved it in my life. And it's interesting because in 1 Timothy, he says that the law is not made for a righteous man. And then he gives this list of these people who the law is actually made for. The ungodly, the sinners, the unholy, the profane, the murderers, fathers of murderers. And it's like, so if the law is not made for the righteous but the wicked, that's why Jesus had to say, think not that I come to destroy the law and the prophets. Because they took it when he said, I want to remove the sign that says all employees must wash their hands before returning to work. They were like, why are you getting rid of the law? He said, I'm just taking it off the wall. You should still wash your hands. If I have to leave it up there, then, well, Paul puts it like this. He says, the heir of the kingdom is no better than a slave as long as he be a child. If you have to be told, I have a lot to say about the law, but let me say this then. But in heaven, service is not rendered in the spirit of legality. When Satan rebelled against the law of Jehovah, the thought that there was a law came unto the angels almost as an awakening to something unthought of. It's like, hey, they require you to wash your hands before you return to work. Oh, that's a law? I did that anyway. I work in the food service. Of course I'm going to wash my hands. It's the right thing to do. In their ministry, the angels are not servants, but as what? Sons. There is perfect unity between them and their Creator. Obedience to them is no drudgery. Love for God makes their service a joy. So in every soul wherein Christ, the hope of glory, dwells, his words are re-echoed. I delight to do thy will, O my God. Yea, thy law is written within my heart. We don't keep the commandments because we don't love him. We don't love him because we don't know him. But he's knocking. Again, if you love me, keep my commandments. And it's over and over. Whosoever abideth in him sinneth not. Whosoever sinneth hath not seen him, neither known him. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse now. He wants you to get to know him. Jesus said unto those Jews which believed on him, if you continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. The truth is about him. It's about the character of God. It's that he's love. If you know me, you know my Father also. But it's true. Many times we have no desire, right, to get to know God. Right? It's like, oh my goodness, I don't want to deal with this right now. But that's natural, right? The carnal mind is enmity against God. That's why I said you must be born again. Jeremiah 29:13, and ye shall seek me and find me when ye shall search for me with all your heart. I'm like, all my heart? You know, I think that means when he says with all your heart, I think he just means in sincerity. Like you're truly seeking and you don't it doesn't matter what you find. When you find the truth, you're going to hold tight to that truth. Jeremiah 24:7, beautiful promise. And I will give them a heart to know me. He even does that. God is good. That I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. For they shall return unto me with their whole heart. Amen. But we can't force ourselves to love him. We love him because he first loved us. It's the last quote I want to share with you. It says, the heart that has once tasted of the love of Christ cries out continually for a deeper draught. And as you impart, you will receive in richer and more abundant measure. Every revelation of God to the soul increases the capacity to do what? To know and to love. So every bit of truth of God that we get, it increases our capacity to be able to know him, and it increases our capacity to be able to love him. And then this next part's so beautiful. The continual cry of the heart is more of thee, and ever the Spirit answer is much more. Brothers and sisters, I have learned a beauty of the character of God that has enabled me to have such an experience where my heart continues to cry out more of thee. That doesn't mean I don't struggle. I do. There are times when still I'm short with my daughter or I'm short with my wife. But you know what happens? We used to love the love chapter. It's like, oh, the love chapter is so good. And yeah, I made a sign that says love never fails for my cousin's wedding. And it never made it to her, so it got stuck at my house. And I was like, oh, I'm getting married. This will make for great decor. Now it's a constant rebuke. That's what keeps me on my knees. That's what keeps me poor in spirit. Because that standard, to not be rude, but to extend grace, and not only grace, but love to those who don't do what I think they should do. I used to care more about being right. Now all I care about is being righteous.
Amen.
There is a higher experience that God wants us to have. And time is short. Time is short. I say this for myself, but it applies to the church as well. If you're Christian everywhere but your home, you're still wearing fig leaves. The righteousness of Christ must be within and without. And we can't do it ourselves. We can't do it ourselves, but he is more than willing. And we must continue to go to him. Continue. The song was beautiful. He says, man, when I fail, they don't know it, but I go back like a little child. Is that what we do, or do we justify ourselves? Do we say, well, they should have never? Or do we turn the mirror inward? I'll end with this story. When I was, long ago, when I first came into the truth, and I came into, what's called present truth. And it was very external heavy, very external in the things that we did. And I had an auntie who's Pentecostal, and obviously she didn't have the truth. I have the truth. And one weekend I went to help them, I went to help them move from Texas to North Carolina, help them drive. And my auntie, who was a Pentecostal pastor, and her mother, who's also Pentecostal, were having they're just having a bad day. So my aunt is cussing my grandmother out. She's cussing her out. And I asked my grandmother, I say, what does a Christian look like? Because I'm judging my auntie. I'm like, that's clearly like, you're supposed to be a pastor and you're talking to your mother like that? But when my grandmother said, I didn't catch it at the time. Because it was all about this pastor lady not doing what she was supposed to do. But what my grandmother said, she said, sometimes a Christian looks like a doormat. I said, pity. What a pity. And it wasn't until just recently that I realized the beauty in what she said. She didn't have the lenses focused on what others were doing. She had the lens focused on her heart. We have an issue where we do focus too much on the outward. Did you guys read this? I don't believe in coincidences. Brothers and sisters, we need to turn the camera on the inside. But don't linger there too long. Look to Jesus. Look to Jesus. He will show you not only what you could be, but in every respect where you're falling short. Everyone. So my appeal is simple. If it is your desire to have a deeper experience, right? To reevaluate yourself, to take another look at the love chapter, and allow the Lord to start that transforming work, or even continue, because he had started it with me, and then I was like, I don't want to do this when it got too hard. And maybe some of you have done that. Maybe you just said, you know what, I'm comfortable here. But it's your desire to allow him to continue that work in every aspect of your life. I just ask you to raise your hand. Praise God. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, you are well able to do that which you have promised to do. You said to us, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven who is perfect. Wow, what a high standard, Lord. We don't know how we would do it, but luckily you have made a way. And the way is so simple. It's just getting to know you. Getting to know you, getting to appreciate the beauty of your character. Lord, we don't know what love is. We've been lied to our whole lives. The world has been telling us love is this or love is that. But Father, you have given us the truth of love. Lord, so long we've been holding up the law as a mirror, Father, to see where we have fallen short. And because of that, Lord, I believe we have been blindsided. Father, help us to hold up Jesus as that mirror, Lord, to show us what we could be through your grace, through your power. Father, forgive me if I've gotten in the way of anything that you have planned on doing. I rest in your promises that your word will not return unto you void, but it will do that which you have sent it out to do. Thank you. I pray for each and every person under the sound of my voice. I pray that you will give them a deeper experience, Lord. Transform this church, that we might be able to do a mighty work for you. Help us, Lord, to have that upper room experience where we acknowledge the allegiance of love and we extend that love to one another. Thank you, Lord, for what you are willing and able to do and what you will do. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.